Okay, today we're going to talk about converting decimals to fractions. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to say, I can convert between decimals and fractions. So we're going to go from decimals to fractions, and then from fractions to decimals as well. You can easily convert a terminating decimal into a fraction as long as you know place values. If you can read a decimal correctly, you can turn it into a fraction with no problem. So let's review. After the decimal point, we have tenths, then hundredths, then thousandths, then 10,000ths, and so on. This number would be read 5/10. 5/10 written as a fraction is 5/10, which I can simplify to 1/2. Let's try another. This decimal will be read 25/100ths. As a fraction, I would write it 25/100 and then simplify it to 1/4. This decimal is read 125,000ths. So as a fraction, I would put 125 over 1,000. And when I simplify it, I get 1/8. This decimal is 1,254 10,000ths. So when I write it as a fraction, I would write 1,254 over 10,000 and then simplify it. If I wanted to convert each decimal to a simplified fraction or mixed number, I would simply start off by writing it as a fraction the way I read it as a decimal. So for example, number 1 is 6/10 as a decimal. So as a fraction, I'd write 6/10 and then simplify it to get 3/5. For the second one, I read 45/100ths. So as a fraction, I would put 45/100 and simplify that to 9/20ths. Now number 3 is a little different. It has a whole number before the decimal. And I read that 5 2/10. This does not change how I write it as a fraction though. However, instead of having just a fraction, I now have a mixed number, 5 2/10, which I would have to simplify, 5 1/5. Number 4 is the same way. It's got a whole number before the decimal, so I would read it 2 12/100ths, and I would write it with a whole number of 2 and a fraction with 12/100, and then I'd have to simplify, and I would get 2 3/25. Number 5, I would still write as a fraction the way I read this decimal. I read number 5 5,000ths. So as a fraction, I would have 5/1,000, and then I'd simplify that to 1/200. Number 6 would end up being a mixed number because I have this whole number right here. I would write that 1 4/100 because I read that decimal 1 4/100ths. And then I'd simplify it to 1 1/25. Let's look at some fractions that represent repeating decimals. If I wanted to convert each of these fractions to a decimal, I would do that by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So I would punch into my calculator 1 divided by 9, or if I were doing it using long division, I would put the 1 in the garage and the 9 outside. Let's take a look at what these fractions are when I convert them by dividing the numerator by the denominator. 1/9 becomes 1/10 repeated. 2/9 is 2/10 repeated. 3/9 is 3/10 repeated. 4/9 is 4/10 repeated. 5/9 is 5/10 repeated. 6/9 is 6/10 repeated. 7/9 is 7/10 repeated, and 8/9 is 8/10 repeated. Notice each of these fractions, when converted to a decimal by dividing the numerator by the denominator, I get the numerator repeated. Please note there is no such thing as a 9/10 repeated. If you have 9 going on forever and ever and ever, mathematicians just call that 1. Also, 9 over 9 equals 1. So it's not possible to have 9/10 repeated when we're dealing with the ninths. Let's take a look at a different fraction and see if we can find a pattern there. If I wanted to convert each of these fractions to a decimal by dividing the numerator by the denominator, I would get a slightly different pattern, but one that I can figure out nonetheless. 6/99ths would be 6/100ths repeated. So I would have 0.060606 going on forever and ever. Let's look at number 2. 15/99ths is 15/100ths repeated. So I would have 0.15151515 going on forever and ever. Number 3 is 32/100ths repeated. Number 4 is 47/100ths repeated. Number 5 is 51/100ths repeated. Number 6 is 60/100ths repeated. I can't say 6/10ths repeated because it would not be correct. When I have 60/100ths repeated, my decimal would look like 0.60606060 going on forever and ever and ever. Number 7 is 72/100ths repeated. And number 8 is 80/100ths repeated. And again, just like number 6, if I were to keep writing this decimal out, it would be 0.80808080 going on forever. Notice the pattern here. When I'm trying to turn a fraction with a denominator of 99 into a decimal, I would simply take the numerator and repeat it. Now, if the numerator only has one digit in it, like number 1, I would have to put a 0 before that 6 to show that there are 6 out of 99. Whereas in this case, I have 6D out of 99. If you want to convert a fraction to a decimal, you don't need a calculator. You can do this very easily by changing the denominator into something that we know as a decimal. For example, tenths. If I were to take 3/5 and turn that into a decimal, I would convert the denominator of 3/5 into a 10, 100, 1,000, something that's easy to read as a decimal. So if I'm looking at 3/5, I'm going to make an equivalent fraction of 6/10. And 6/10 is very easy to write as a decimal, because I know it's just a decimal point with a 6 after it, because the 6 is in the tenths place. I can also convert a fraction to a decimal easily by changing the denominator to 100ths. So 25 can go into 100 evenly. So I would make an equivalent fraction where the denominator is 100. Notice 25 times 4 is 100. 22 times 4 is 88. So I have 88/100ths. I can change the denominator to thousandths as well by creating equivalent fractions. 125 times 5 is 1,000. So I would take 115 times 5 and get 920. 920 thousandths. I'm sorry, 125 times 8 is 1,000. And 115 times 8 is 920. If I have 1/3, I might convert that from a fraction to a decimal by changing the denominator to ninths. So 1/3 is equivalent to 3/9, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 1 times 3 is 3. And 3/9 I now know as a decimal is 3/10 repeated. I can also change the denominator to 99ths. 33 times 3 is 99, and 12 times 3 is 36. So I have 36 hundredths all repeated. Now it's your turn. Convert each fraction into a decimal. Pause the video, and when you are done, continue playing the video because there will be 6 questions in the next slide. So pause now, complete numbers 1 through 4 in your notebook, then resume the video to get to the rest of the problems. Here are your last 6 problems for this assignment. Convert each decimal into a simplified fraction or mixed number. When you are done, don't forget to WSQ in your notes. You can go back and watch any portion of this video again if you didn't understand something.